ones that they might be interested in, as well as ones that they maybe don't know about. And they get to do that via amazing women like our guests here today. So thank you so much for joining us and giving up a little bit of your time on a Saturday morning. I'm going to let you two ladies go ahead and introduce yourselves. Give us a little bit of information about like where you're located and what you currently do, and maybe just a little bit about like how you got to where you are. So Cynthia, if you want to start us off.
I can certainly do that. Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Kamga. I am the Regional Finance Director for Sodexo, which is a global hospitality company. And I am based out of the Washington, D.C. area. And I've been working in corporate finance for about 17 years now. I love it, which is why I'm still doing it. And really how I got here was through various opportunities in college in terms of internships and realizing what I wanted to do. I started out wanting to do banking, investment banking actually, and then quickly realized that for my personality and the lifestyle that I want to live, that was not the right fit. So hence why I'm actually in corporate finance today. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Marisa Sonnier. Great to be here and happy to share a little bit about what has brought me to my career today. I'm based in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm the director of investor partnerships with a alternative asset manager. And similar to Cynthia, internships really were helpful for me, but I have a little bit of a different story in just being incredibly lucky. And by networking in ways like this, I was able to connect with some folks at Goldman, which is where I really wanted to work. And I was fixated upon that because it was the best bank and the best training. And so when I was in college, a sophomore in college, I networked with a few people there. And I knew they were coming on campus to interview. And so I spoke with them about the potential for me to connect with them. And ultimately, they basically told me there's no chance, you're only 19 years old and we're not going to hire you, which is fair. Frankly, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to work there. And so ultimately, I ended up speaking with them. It was very helpful. They came back to me and said one of the people who was supposed to interview on campus was no longer eligible because they had a health center fine or something silly, and the college wouldn't let you interview on campus if you had infractions. And so I was able to do it. And they said, don't have your expectations too high. We're going to use this as a way to just get to know you. And hopefully next year we can engage the conversation. So I went and I interviewed with them. And the second person I met with grilled me harder than I've ever been grilled in my life to this day. Still the worst interview I've had. And ultimately, he spoke with my friend's class after and said, there was one person who didn't try to lie to me during the interview and was honest about what they didn't know. And that is something that I admire, and we'll see. Everyone was horrible other than this one person who was probably not great either, but didn't lie to me about what they didn't know. And so that was me. And I got an internship at the age of 19 there. And so really from there, like I had the training, he saw something in me in a sales capacity. And that's kind of what I built my career off of.
That's amazing. What an amazing story.
Yeah.
And welcome, Alicia. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that there was a little bit of tech issues, but what we're doing right now, we just got started. So just introducing ourselves, letting everybody know like where we're located, and a little bit about what we do, what you're doing now, and how you got there.
Okay. Hey guys, Alicia Elizondo. I am in Houston, West Chase area, Southwest A-Leaf. I've been living here in this area since I was in second grade. So it's my part of town. I don't see myself moving anywhere else unless, something comes up. But yeah, I love this area. It's where I grew up. It's where my siblings went to school also. So I've been concentrated here. Currently, I'm working at Arcus Advisors. It's a accounting consulting firm or business advisory. I've been there for 3 years, and I don't joke around when I say it is my dream job. It's everything I wanted when I left my previous job. I was looking for something that would let me grow and learn and continue to learn project after project. So in my mind, that included access to different business processes, ERPs, and accounting methods, traveling, all of that. If I could find a job that included all of that, that was my dream job. And it just happened to come to my lap when I was starting to look for a job. I was listening to Marisa do what you were saying, and reflecting on some of the questions that we were going to go through today. Last night, looking at them, I realized that all the decisions I've made have brought me to where I am today. I didn't start college until way 10 years after high school. I felt like I probably was out at a disadvantage because of my age, and other women my age probably had more experience at the time, but things have happened. I went on interviews after college and I was rejected, but the third one was the one. And that's where I started working at an oil and gas servicing company. I was there for 10 years. And during those 10 years, I moved up and lateraled through the chain, and it brought me to where I am today. So yeah, it's been very educational, and I'm thankful for all the opportunities that I had.
Fantastic.
So I say, listening to all three of you, there were like a couple points that I wanted to bring up because it's something that we talk about with the girls, or that the girls ask about. The first was, you had been mentioned internships and networking. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, is like how, because the big question that we get asked is like, how do you find the internships? How do you know which internship you would be right for? How do you interview for an internship? And then the big piece that we talk to the girls about is like, even with getting internships, networking is something that's super key with getting you to the places that you want to be. So if you ladies would like to kind of expound a little bit about like finding those internships, how you got them, and then how networking has played a role in your careers.
So for
And leave it up
me,
to
I'll,
anybody.
I'll go ahead and start.
Mhm.
Well, when I was in school, what really did help was, first of all, understanding kind of what I wanted to do, right? We choose a major, for example, but majors are very broad. And, it's through talking to people, through seeing people in your community that you admire, that you kind of figure out, okay, this might be something that I want to dabble in. And for me, it was really a professor that I had in school that kind of, I loved his investment banking class, right? And I talked to him, and he also was working for a bank at the time, Capital One. And so he was in their investment sector. And through talking to him, networking with him, being a good student and somebody that was engaged, I mean, he saw something in me where he recommended me to be able to go ahead and basically get this internship with the school. But other things that I would do was talk to my college advisor, right? Those are also resources that we have while you're in college. Them understanding kind of the career path that you want to be following. And also, schools have access to a lot of different companies, organizations, people that donate, people that just want to invest into the younger talent, right? They're like, okay, these people will be coming out of school soon. Let's make sure we get ahead of them. So, hearing about the college fairs, right? Attending the college fairs, and essentially following up, looking at the organizations that you want to go to. Marisa, you talked about Goldman Sachs, right? I mean, if I wanted to go to Goldman Sachs, I would go on their website, look at what kind of programs do they have for students that are in college, and internships. And volunteering also helps, right? It may not be a paid internship, but it gets you the experience, and really getting the experience quickly ahead of the competition, should we say, right? Other people that are out there really helps you, set you apart. And that kind of helps you build the framework for even a resume that you would put out there before other people. And networking, I mean, I was part of a lot of different college groups. I was part of a Latin club. I was part of a finance club. I mean, many different organizations that helped. And it doesn't necessarily have to be things that are related to like your future financial career, but it could just be a fun club, right? That you want to go to. I'm part of a sorority. My sorors are my network. And just things like that, even things that you love to do, just being out there and meeting people who are involved in other things helps. So that's what I would say.
I agree across the board. I would say the thing that I have tried to think about when I I'm thinking about internships or roles is creating the right perception of the match. Like it's easy to go into it and say, well, this is what this job can do for me. This is what this internship can do for me. And if you flip it and say, what can I bring to the table for them? And what is a problem that they need to solve that I can be part of and be a solution for? It really has changed kind of my approach across the board and been something that really has helped me, particularly when I was younger and thinking through what I wanted to do and where I actually thought my strengths lied. And when I spoke earlier about my story with my first interview, I definitely left the room feeling, first of all, horrified that I didn't even have a suit, which is so embarrassing. I think back, I was like, wore like a J. Crew little skirt, like, and it was just not even close to what I should have worn, but that's okay. We live and we learn. But ultimately, he asked me a lot about working at a store. And I worked at a store when I was in high school. It was a high-end women's boutique. And it was an interesting experience for sure. But that was what we spent a lot of the interview talking about. And I left like, what? Like I'm studying finance. I don't understand why that was something that he wanted to understand better and spent so much time asking about. But ultimately, I was a salesperson when I was in high school. And I'm still a salesperson today, just in finance. And so I would say it's definitely a little bit about understanding what your strengths are and what you enjoy and thinking about what jobs are within that purview and what you can bring to the table when you're thinking about roles. And on the networking side of things, it's critical. It's what my whole job is, being a salesperson, is building my network and continuing to build upon relationships. And I would say that's really what has brought me all of my career success to date. So I can't underscore enough how important it is. And really, it's about human connection at the end of the day. And like, I love to pay it forward and speak with women who are thinking about their careers. And there's been many women who've done that for me. And I still use the advice that they gave me and pass that onward to my mentees. And really, that's something that brings me a lot of joy. And so having a thoughtful approach and reaching out to somebody who you think can be helpful to you, I think can't be forgotten, because the amount of LinkedIn messages I get for networking, and it's just like the wrong company. Some people don't even correct the way they spell my name wrong or whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, of course, there's only so many hours in the day and I could work all of them. And so I really want to pay it forward, but I also want to do that when it's somebody who really is valuing my time as well. And so thinking through the questions you're going to ask, like, again, I can't even tell you the amount of times I get on the phone and somebody has no questions for me. And it's just a waste of my time, frankly, because they didn't prepare, or they didn't think about it. And so I think most people are more than happy to network and speak with you about what they do. However, it's really important to think through what you're going to ask them, and you're using their time and using it wisely. And for sure, being helpful to them in that way.
What about you, Alicia? Any thoughts about networking or internships?
So for internships, I because I went to an online college, I didn't have access to organizations or internship possibilities, but I can relate on some level, speaking as regarding interviews, that right out of college, I went to 2 interviews and they didn't call me back. At that time, it did feel like rejection, but then that third one I was telling you all about came along and I realized that it was setting me up for something better, right? So when I started looking at things after, like, I reflected on that, and then after that, I would ask for promotions, or would go on other interviews and would get rejected. I wouldn't take it as hard because I realized that it was in preparation for something better. So that would be my advice regarding internships. And regarding networking, I've always been an introvert, and getting out to meet new people has always been something that it's been hard for me, but I found that it's about who you surround yourself with, the kind of women. And when I started surrounding myself with women that we're probably also introverts, but at the same time, we're welcoming and empowering. Then I started to open up, and just out of nowhere, I joined an organization, and eventually I became a board member in that organization, and it was all about networking. And I realized the more you do it, the more practice you do, then you get better at it. And now I'm doing this, and this is something that if you would have asked me many years ago that I'd be doing, I wouldn't, because it was never a strength of mine, but now I'm realizing that it can be if I continue to work on it. So that's my
And
advice.
I thought of one other thing, sorry if you don't mind
Okay,
coming
sure.
back, but the one thing that also has been something that I really struggled with for a while is how do I stay in front of these people? So say I meet with Christina and we have a great conversation, and then there's not a natural next step or next touch point. You can kind of thoughtfully create that. Like, what in our conversation did I most appreciate? And then when you use that, follow back up and say, the thing that you shared with me really helped in this situation. And over time, you kind of can just build a natural dialogue. And I can't even tell you the amount of people that it's me sending them links to things that are on sale, like professional clothes, because that's what is our touch point now. And we're friends, and it kind of becomes more natural. But it's little things like that to say, like, I'm thinking of you, and this is something you shared that was helpful, versus not really knowing where to take it next.
Yeah, that follow-up is so important. That's one of the things that we talk about with our students when we're teaching them about networking and everything, is that like it's easy to go and meet people, like easy, like, to go and meet people, but it's the follow-up piece that really sets you apart. Like, tell them like that follow-up could be something as simple as, thank you so much for taking the time. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm like, it's that simple, and then later on, if something happens, like we tell the girls, they want to hear from you. Like the women that you're meeting with, they want to hear from you, want to get updates and everything. So it's very important. The other piece that I wanted to highlight from your introductions was you each had talked about, I loved this. This is the thing that I love to do. And so that's something that a lot of our students sometimes are like, how do I know that this is what I want to do? How did you find that? Is the question that I'm posing to you. Is like, how did you guys figure out? Was it through the internships, or was it just something you're like, oh, I've known since I was like 2 years old that I wanted to be in finance? So just how did you find
Definitely
and
not
know
that.
that this was going to be was going to be the perfect job for you?
I'll go ahead and start. So for me, I wanted to do something totally different when I was 9, by the way. I wanted to be an attorney. Okay. And so, but my parents have always been in business, and and they have always wanted their children to help them with the business as well, right? But there are other things that I was interested in as well, which finance was one of them, because I've always known that finance is a vehicle that helps you achieve some of your dreams, right? Because you need to be able to have the means, and you need to be able to manage the resources that you're given to be able to have a certain life that you want, so to speak. And so in terms of finance, once I decided that that's what I would do while I was in school, really what helped me again was just putting myself out there and trying it out, right? I started out in banking, didn't like it. Then I started out in corporate finance in a different department from where I am today. And that also just helped me. Just putting one step forward, essentially, is what got me to where I am today. And I love what I do today, but I also understand that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I may want something very different, right? So being open-minded to the fact that you discover new things every day. For example, technology has changed so much over the past decades, right? There are new things that come out there and new resources that you just have to, again, learn about, open yourself to, and you keep going on this journey. It's like a butterfly. You're growing. Every day you're growing and you're learning. And don't be afraid to learn and even change your mind. I feel like sometimes people get stuck because I started here and I'm going to stay there. If I had stayed in banking, for example, I would never be where I am today, where I'm very content today. But I also understand that moving forward, I could be doing something very different. So
I feel like we're all one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other with our stories, because I couldn't agree more. I feel like you just don't know until you're at a firm and you're in a role. And I try to ask myself the question of like, what do I enjoy day to day? What am I maybe not enjoying? What feels right? What doesn't feel right? And just checking in with yourself to say, okay, this role I like because of XYZ, but I feel like the culture may not be the right fit for me. And this is why. So I can now, in my next step, go to do something a little bit different. And again, in college, I feel like I didn't ever want to do finance, by the way. I always wanted to be a teacher. And when I was applying to college, I kind of had the same thought as Cynthia, where I had to apply to the business school. And that was what I had to do. And I was applying to college when I was 17. And so that was a choice I made because I knew it would offer a broad opportunity set, which was important to me too. And so I applied to it and ended up minoring in marketing, but majoring in finance. And really, they kind of teach you there's two opportunities. There's investment banking, and there's consulting, and there's accounting, three. And that's kind of the only jobs that seem publicly, what's out there. And so I never really felt strongly. I knew I didn't want to do banking because I knew I wanted a little bit more of work-life balance. And I didn't really do well at accounting. It was not my skill set. And so it kind of was a gray area of like, what else is there within finance? And in hindsight, there's so much that you don't learn about, one of which is being in sales. Like they don't really teach you about financial sales, and there's so many different ways that that can look. And so again, it's a little bit of trial and error. And I was lucky that the person I interviewed with saw that I was good at that and knew a lot more than obviously I did, and was able to slot me into my based on my skill set. But it was certainly something I wouldn't have otherwise known about. And so the more exploratory conversations that you can have with professionals, the better, because you can inform your understanding of what's out there and also think through kind of your plan. And you can only plan so much until you go somewhere and start something. And then that's where we all have taken one step at a time and seen what we like and don't like and pivoted accordingly. But it leads you to your next opportunity always. And I think that's the right mindset to have.
Yeah, for me, when I was in high school and upon graduation, I had three interests. One was architecture, the other one was psychology, and then the third one was accounting. Uh, when I left high school, I went into work for the state as a social worker, but I realized that it was not, unfortunately, you're limited as to how much you can help. So I say thankfully now, but at the time, getting laid off due to budget cuts from the state didn't look like a blessing. But now that I look back on it, it pushed me to think about it again, right? I like drawing, but I don't think I would like to get paid for it. So the third option, accounting, was the one that was left. And I found that I was good at it. Like Marisa said, you have to think about what you like and what you don't like of your career options. And then once you are there, it's okay to move around. I mean, I've met some people that have completely changed what they do. They did accounting for several years and now they went on to real estate, right? So you don't have to be stuck in one place if you don't like it. And then finally, also kind of touching back on what Marissa just said is uh, networking really does help, because when I was in my previous employer, I met an accounting consultant. And when she talked to me about what she did and all the different areas that she was exposed to, I remember thinking that back then when I heard that, that's what I want to do one day. At the time, I felt like I needed more experience, and now here I am, where I had heard from this lady what she did, and now that I came to my lap, I was like, yeah, I'm going to take it. So it is about continue to network and then self-evaluation.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask next was sometimes when we're talking with the girls about the careers that they're interested in, they have kind of a narrow thought about what exactly is available. So one of the things that I was wondering is, because like for me, myself, I'm like, when I think of like a job in finance, I think like somebody sitting with a calculator all day long and spreadsheets, like that's what I'm thinking about. So I just was kind of seeing if you guys could speak on, what is it about your day-to-day that most people don't think about when they think about your career in finance. And and I totally brain farted on what my other part of my question was. So
We'll
hopefully I
probably
remember
just
what the other
address it
part is.
anyway, because
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah. For accounting, I can say that there's the misconception that all that we do is just taxes, and probably the same goes with finance. So it's not just about taxes. Accounting is so broad. Every industry needs accounting, so it's a really cool industry to work with because you could combine two passions. Like I was just recently on a project with an entertainment industry company in Las Vegas, and we did the accounting for some of the Vegas shows. So you could combine entertainment and, meet people in the entertainment industry and also do accounting. So it's really neat because you can combine two passions or more than two. But that's a common misconception that I've dealt with, and also that you don't have to be good at numbers. I mean, we have Excel, and we use formulas within that to help us. So those would be the two things that I would say are common. But for me, I love what I do, and I like to share my knowledge. And anyone that has a question about it can always reach out.
yeah, I think that's been something in my career that I was the most surprised by is I get a lot of value from mentoring. And that's, I guess, where I can put my teacher hat on and share some of my experiences and kind of pay it forward for those who want to better understand what I do or the lessons I've learned, because that's something I really enjoy. And so it's not necessarily part of my day-to-day. Of course, I have people who I work with who I help them think through their career and kind of what they could develop upon. But outside of that, I think that's something I get a lot of value out of that I wouldn't have otherwise necessarily thought of as a big part of my fulfillment in my day-to-day. But as I've shared, I'm kind of in a fundraising role, and I would have never, ever in a million years understood the way parts of the financial system work. But my mom is a teacher. She's retired now, but in Illinois. So one of my clients or prospects is Illinois teachers. And I'm part of the team that thinks through how we can partner with them for their teachers' retirement fund. And there's a lot of parts of the financial system I wouldn't have thought about. The teachers' retirement fund wouldn't be one of them, but it's been really interesting to understand that side of things. And I partner with a lot of endowments and foundations that help give scholarships to students in need and things like that, which there's a whole part that you don't think about when you think about crunching numbers and things like that. You can be a real partner to help these organizations grow their capital and really change lives and think through problems that they're maybe facing and how you can be a partner to them. And I'm not the one investing the money, but I believe in the team that is. And so I can kind of be someone who shares that with them. And there's just a whole side of giving back in that way, which you don't really think about.
And I would say that for me, what I love about finance and that people don't necessarily think about, but that kind of plays into what Alicia and Marisa have said, is that you interact with people. You have a human connection. You're not just touching numbers, you know, you're not. And oftentimes people meet me and they're like, you are such a nice, bubbly, kind person. I didn't picture that when I see your title, when I see what you do. And I'm like, I'm human. Right. And I just bring my human self to work into the things that I do every single day. And the part that I love about my job is interacting with people, meeting people, hearing their stories, helping them meet their objectives. It's about touching clients every day. I've worked on big accounts, Procter and Gamble for my company, worked with International Monetary Fund, meaning different capacities. And we've all said it that we work with so many different organizations that is just like a new thing every single day. Right. And so that's the beauty of it. Finance is so broad, and it doesn't have to be this stuck uppity, type, profession. It's really beautiful because one, if you're somebody who likes structure, yes, the structure is in the numbers, but you touch so many other things every single day. You have to be able to be engaging with people. You have to be able to have empathy, even in finance. You have to be able to know how to strategically navigate the political world in the business side of things, right? So it's all things that we do every day, whether it be in sales, whether it be in technology. These are skills that you need to have. So, and even just when you're in the playground, and I mean, maybe let's say when you're hanging out with your friends, I would say those are all the skills that you have. Networking with your friends, right? Talking to them, communicating with them, and connecting with them in a real way. So that is what I would say is the misconception. We don't just punch numbers, Christina.
Yeah.
I
You
was
can
gonna
actually
say,
go
I
to
mean,
cocktail parties too and have cocktails, right? For
Yes.
example.
Yeah, we're not boring.
Right.
I was gonna say, like, when I think of like somebody in finance, like literally it's like somebody like in like the three-piece suit and all like structured and everything just very stuffy. And yeah, I was like, wow, these ladies are in finance. I'm like, I never would have thought
The
of that.
perpetual learning. Yes. I
There you
mean,
go.
you're always learning and making connections, which is part of it that is fun.
Awesome. Well, we do have Esther with us today. And so I wanted to just see with Esther to see if you have any questions for our speakers who are here today. And you're on mute just in case you're. You can always feel free to type your question in the chat. That's not a big deal either. So, so if you think of one, you can either just pop in and interrupt, or you can stick it into the chat. Either way.
Or follow up with
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
one-on-one.
So one of the things too that I wanted to see was we talked about the things that you love about your job. Every job has something that we love about it. And then every job has something that we are less than thrilled with that is a challenge. So just one of the things of like, what have you found that's most challenging about your career?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. It's taken me a lot of time, but I am putting myself out there every day in my job. And turns out sometimes you put yourself out there and you get rejected, kind of to the point of interviewing. And so I am in front of various prospects and clients, and there are times where I show up and I'm my authentic self, and that doesn't go over as I would want it to. And that feeling just isn't very fun to have. I've gone to meetings and had someone say, next time you should bring a more senior person with you because I deserve to be covered by a more senior person than you are. And that stinks. But what I've learned is ultimately a lot of times that's a reflection on them and not me. And finding confidence through that in knowing who I am and knowing that I bring value. And if they don't appreciate that, that's not necessarily on me at all. It's more on them. And that's been something that's taken me a lot of time to get to. And it still stinks sometimes. I'm like, okay, great. That was not fun to really hear, but being able to for every time that happens, there's 10 times where I meet someone and we have a fantastic conversation and they respect me. And I've met with people who are in their 70s and they're speaking to me about money and they're really listening to what I have to say. And that's great. And so it's really about persevering for me through some of the more challenging times to get to, just being confident in who you are.
For me, it's more about scheduling, right? In my profession, the first 2 weeks of the month are horrible. So busy because you're wrapping up financials, right? It's like we close the month. How have we performed in terms of working with the operational teams to make sure that we're booking everything? And literally, we have like 2 days to do it. So that was yesterday and the day before for me, right? So I have to wake up super early, pull numbers, analyze the numbers, send out information, and then have very tough conversations with the operators that it's the reality of the fact that we haven't met our budget by $500,000, right? And so that's stressful. I don't like having those difficult conversations at times because it puts people in a bad position. So adding to the fact that I don't get very many hours of sleep during that time frame, and then the numbers might not look like what I would want them to look, it can be challenging. And so always, telling myself, hey, they all have challenges, right? The results are looking the way that they are because yes, the hurricane was a real thing in the South, right? North Carolina, all those things. And those are things that we cannot predict. And then redirecting, right, my energy in terms of, okay, what is helpful to move the needle forward in terms of even, catching up, so to speak, next month. But then the second week, which is next week, is me having these difficult conversations with the CEO about why we missed by $500,000. So that's a part of my job that I don't like. But when the news are good in terms of, oh, we exceeded by 1 million, everybody's happy. But then you have these moments where it's not what you had planned, which is life. And how do you adapt? How do you tell the best story? Because part of my job is to really tell the story around the numbers, right? And so I like to talk about the numbers, and most people like it when they're good. But again, like I said, it's just challenging at times, and give me little knots in my stomach when it doesn't look that right. But as long as I've done everything that I could in terms of helping the team, in terms of us basically, let's say, action planning and also acting upon those plans. If we've done everything we could, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and we're just going to talk about how we move forward. So.
Yeah. For me, in the current role where I'm at, the challenge is working with different types of people, because I have to go from project to project. Not only do I have to learn the business process very quickly, but I also have to talk with different types of people. So I could have someone that maybe isn't as open to hearing an advice or a piece of advice. And so what I've learned is that I'm here to give advice and consult as to how their accounting process is working. And if they don't listen, that's okay. I'm just here to give that advice. And if they take it, great. If not, that's fine too. And I've learned that I could maybe find another opportunity to revisit that same conversation and approach it in a different way, because this person may not, it may be the way that I gave the advice, right? So I just have to find a different way, a different avenue of giving that consultation. And most of the time it does work. And when it doesn't, I don't take it personally, because that's I'm just here to give advice, and if they take it, it's fine. If not, that's okay too. So that's been one of the challenges.
I was gonna say, I think that's like a huge piece of advice that I've heard here like multiple times, is that it's like when talking to somebody and they don't like what you have to say, or they don't like who they're hearing it from,
Mhm.
just being able to separate, like it's hard to not take it personally, but to really kind of try to make that separation of that. Because otherwise, I'm like, I think that you would end up being miserable in your job a lot of the times, just because it isn't personal necessarily. It is just that, you're sometimes delivering bad news, that kind of thing, or it's different pieces of advice that they didn't, that they maybe should take, but didn't want to hear, you know? So through your time within your career, who has been one of your biggest role models? It could be somebody that you either get to interact with personally, or it could be somebody who you maybe don't know, but you look up to. So who's been some of your biggest role models?
I
I'll go
think,
ahead and start.
go ahead.
For me, my father has always been the biggest role model. And really why I say that, it's because he's gone through multiple career changes over his lifetime, 3 times over, where, life doesn't always go the way you want it to go. And I think that that's kind of has been a resounding theme throughout this conversation, right? Whether being rejected through an interview, whether telling someone something that they didn't want to hear. And for him, he's had a lot of obstacles in terms of like being at the very top of his game, working for a global company and then being fired, right? And then having to start over. And that's how he started his business, through that resilience around, okay, they didn't like what I had to say, but that doesn't define me as an individual, right? Him not cowering, but keeping on persevering. And created a business that has been very successful, and that has taken care of my siblings, my mother, after that, right? And then engaging in different things, because the first thing that he touched didn't necessarily work. He started working on pineapples and importing them globally. And then he went into import exporting, because he always worked into like shipping, right? And that's what he did. And then he went back to that because that was his passion. And although the pineapple business did great, he had to give it up because he couldn't divide himself between both things. When you're a business owner, you really are like working 24/7. people have the misconception that when you're a business owner, you set your hours. You can, but if you want your business to be successful, you have to turn over every leaf, right? You have to go after behind people, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. Even when you're on vacation, you're not really on vacation because you're thinking about this big client and are they doing what they're doing, right? And so I would say that yes, he is my role model because I fully understand that life can throw you curveballs. For somebody who came out top in his class, like I said, but then did get fired at the top of his game when he was in his early 30s, but still kept pushing. Yes, that's somebody that's very real that I look up to, that I ask advice from. Yeah, and I have taken these qualities from him, and that's something that I treasure because it's like if he can do it, I can do it. So.
Yeah. For me, it's same. It's my parents. My mom is a very strong-willed woman, doesn't take no for an answer. She likes to learn new things. She's from a generation in Mexico that was very machismo. So women had a certain role and that was it. But she did not take that. She still wanted to learn what my dad knew about repairing a house or just construction. She didn't care. So in that same way, I've also taken on that characteristic where I just want to learn. I want to keep learning. And then in terms of work ethic, that was my dad. When I was in elementary, I would go to work with him sometimes. Um, he used to paint and refurbish countertops, kitchen and bathroom and appliances, bathtubs. And so I would go with him and see how he would perform his job, how he would interact with people, how he would dress. Something funny that I always remember is he would always go with his shirts, it had his logo on it, but they were very well pressed, they were clean. His jeans were clean. And I remember asking him, Dad, why, like, you're gonna get dirty. Why do you go like that? And he's like, because it's about how you present yourself to people. And that was a very valuable lesson. So that work ethic is what I got that from my dad. Is I always try to look presentable wherever I go. And I always engage with people. It doesn't matter where they're at, if they're the CFO or the CEO or the janitor. So yeah, my parents.
I feel like I had one answer and now I have 17 people, so I have to kind of be quick in going through it. But my parents are the reason that I got to where I am today, 1,000%. And my mom grew up on a farm, and my grandfather worked at the Speed Queen factory and also took care of the farm. And that work ethic, I think, is something that I learned from. And you can be the smartest person in the room. It's not me, but my work ethic is certainly what has got me to where I am today. And I've learned that from him and my parents. The other thing I would say, kind of to the point of presenting yourself, is I worked for a woman, and she always challenged me to be my authentic self and not to be afraid to stand out. And that's something that, Christina, I think you said you think of finance as people in suits. And I worked in New York on Wall Street, and I got there and had all my black suits, and I wore them black and navy, and I wore them all the time. And I worked for this woman, and she would wear a bright red suit and a bright green suit. And she always just said, stand out. Like, you should stand out. People can find you. And if you want to wear that, you should wear it. And so now I always wear color, as I'm in black, but I have my color. And, it's little things like that of just being who you are and seeing someone who's in your industry be their authentic self every day. That kind of helped me to find that confidence to do that as well.
Awesome. So as we're wrapping up, you've had a chance to talk about who has been a role model for you. My last question is like realizing that you are role models now for younger women. What is a piece of advice that you would give to Esther, give to any of the young women who are going to be watching this video? And it could be career advice, it could be life advice, but what's like the best piece of advice that you would like to pass on?
I think we've all said it time and time over here on this call, be your authentic self, right? Because when you're your authentic self, you're happy and you're bringing something that's different to the table than the other person would be bringing, which is key. It's about what can I bring to this person, to this experience, to this company. But really, you have those skills, right? And even your personality is something that's special in the way you think about things that another person might not think about. So don't conform to the norm. I would say really do you, in terms of you're bright, you're smart, you have the skills that are required. Everything that you've done before has taken to you to where you are today. And don't forget that. And therefore bring what you are today to this particular situation. And like I said, being confident in knowing that you have everything that is required to be able to do what you need to do. So that's the one thing that I would say. And obviously, like I said, it's like where you are today is where you were meant to be. And, don't worry about anything other than sitting in this moment, gathering all the skills that are required to take you to the next step. Because wherever you might be, like I said, I gave the example of my dad. He could have wallowed and said, hey, man, I'm in my mid 30s and I lost this job, and just be like, my life is over. And Alicia, you gave examples around, the job that you lost, right? While you were a social worker. But guess what? You're in your dream job today. So, exactly. I mean, that's the key thing that I would say, being your authentic self and always pushing forward, because you'll get there.
Yeah, and I would say also following up on that is don't compare your journey to anyone else's. You have to follow your own journey. Don't think, oh, so and so is already doing this and maybe I should already be doing it. No, just know yourself, self-evaluate, know what makes you happy, and do that. Don't ever compare yourself to anyone else.
Both of those are things that I always am kind of keeping top of mind, because it is very hard. And it's easy to be hard on yourself when you are not thinking about it that way. And so it's a ever growing challenge. And it's easy to see people that are farther in their career and say, oh my gosh, I want to be like that. If only I was as whatever quality as they are, but you don't see the distance that they've traveled to get to the point that they are. And so I think that that's something that's really important. I would say it's really just being in a perpetual state of learning. And if you're uncomfortable, that's a good thing, because that means you're challenging yourself. And no one likes to be uncomfortable. But even like you spoke, Alicia, about how you hated speaking and you were really an introvert, and hearing you today, like that would never be something I thought. So I would just say that, putting yourself in the situations that are uncomfortable is really important to continue to grow and be kind of your best self.
Awesome. Amazing advice. So I just want to see if Esther, if you've got any questions at all that you want to drop into the chat, or you want to pop in here and ask. So absolutely. Is there ways that you can reach out to ask questions? Absolutely. So one of the things that I was going to ask our ladies to do right now is if you could drop your LinkedIn link into the chat for Esther, because she just asked about that, about LinkedIn. Yay, Esther, for knowing about LinkedIn.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's a great, I know I was gonna say that's a great platform to use to get connected with people in the professional world, to start as a frame of networking. It's a great way to follow up with people that you've met, and network is asking questions about things that you might be confused regarding. So I don't know, ladies, if you're able to drop your LinkedIn link into the chat. If not, Esther, I will definitely make sure. Oh, there goes Marisa's. Yay. I was gonna say, I can definitely make sure that in the email that I can get that in there. Are there any other questions that you have, Esther? I love the fact that you're saying like that you recognize that you're going to need counseling and mentors. So yes, the mentors are so important in really helping you get answers to questions and helping you get connected. So that's amazing. So we've got Alicia's and Cynthia. Are you able to get yours in there? She's working on getting hers in there.
Yep, I'll plug it in right
All right, awesome.
Yeah, I
And
think of the
then,
counseling and mentorship as your personal board, is what they say. It's the people who you can always go to for advice or their perspective. It's good to have a broad group of people that you have in your corner always to ask questions to.
exactly. We also have, just Esther, I'm not sure if you are aware or not, but on the Nerdy Girl Success website, We actually have a flash mentoring area where you can set up time to meet with these women one-on-one, as well as a variety of different other women. So feel free to use that resource as well. So Esther, my last question is, have you been able to get the LinkedIn links here in the chat?